All right, well, thanks everyone for your patience. We'll kind of get started here. Again, hello, my name is Ryan. I am a channel account specialist here at Ingram Micro, focusing on the Citrix service provider side of things. Here at Ingram, we distribute technology from a multitude of vendors, and since I started, I've noticed a growing percentage of partners interested to explore how enterprise-class unified IT performance analytics and business services management solutions can help complement their business. Centerity is a vendor that came up time and time again, and I wanted to organize the webinar to present and demo Centerity with all of you today, so thank you all for joining. With that, I will like to turn it over to John Snow, who's an executive with Centerity, to start things off, so take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. The topic of today's conversation is called hide and seek, how false alarms kill your service level agreements. And we'll be going through in about 20 minutes some scenarios as to the impact of what we call, in a technical way of describing it, false positives. These are alarms or alerts that are valid, but don't really impact your overall performance levels or your service levels of what you are providing as a managed service provider. So we'll start walking through the scenarios, but let me just give you a real brief one-slide explanation of who Centerity is. We focus in the area of what's called business service management. Moving forward, I'll refer to this as BSM. So we provide business service management software that improves your service levels and your customer satisfaction quickly, reliably, and economically. We have some world-class customers, we've got world-class partners, and we've even earned a couple cool awards. But the bottom line, what we do is we take a system-level approach for improving your performance of MSPs, performance of data centers. All right, so what's the problem that we're looking at? The problem is, quite frankly, that your sysadmins within the data center or within the MSP are simply getting too many warnings and too many alerts. If you look at the information technology, there's an awful lot out there, and each of these environments that I have up on the screen is complex enough to have a full-time staff member looking at it, depending upon the size of your MSP. So what happens is, each of these environments being complex enough gets an awful lot of alarms. And someone has to weed through which ones are important and which ones are unimportant to the overall service level. But it gets a little bit worse, because when you look at all of the environments, you are finding your system administrators absolutely buried in critical warnings and alerts. In fact, one of the MSPs that we talked to, one of the managers said, I get over 400 alerts myself, not to mention what my sysadmins get every single day, and only 5 of them matter. So if you have a way of getting me down to the 5 that matter, so I don't have to bother with the other 395, that would be wonderful. Well, the fact of the matter is, the problem is even more complex, because operations technology gets just as many warnings and alerts. And what happens to an awful lot of these? They simply go into a folder, which then somehow disappears, because so many of those alarms and alerts are simply nuisance alerts. So what we find one of the problems that our customers are facing is that they are getting thousands of alerts every day, some of them tens of thousands. And the question is, which ones are actually affecting their business? So where is all of this information coming from? The problem is really around incompatible measurement. Each organization, each business process, and every system gets monitored differently. And because of that, it actually impairs enterprise oversight. It actually gets in the way of or hinders your ability to look at all of the systems as one continuous ecosystem and manage it for maximum performance and maximum customer satisfaction. So whether it be business processes like finance and logistics, whether it be technology like virtualization and servers and security, whether it be the deployment model, a multi-tenant, or co-location, or cloud. All of these are generating an awful lot of information that someone has to go in and look at and process. And a lot of that information isn't relevant to the overall performance level. It may be very important to managing a device down at the details, but from a high-level view, you only typically need 15 to 20 key performance indicators or metrics or whatever you want to call them in order to maximize performance. Now, the other 100 metrics that you could be looking at are very important for troubleshooting, for getting down into root cause analysis, but they're not important for high-level performance management. So what we find is that good business decisions that maximize your SLA and maximize your customer satisfaction require all of this data to be in the proper context so that people can make good business decisions. Well, what are the implications of having unpredictable performance? All companies are run on three basic KPIs, for lack of a better word. One is time, one is cost, one is quality. Those are the three buttons that you have to push on that are going to optimize how your company is performing. So if we're looking at the intersection of time and cost, where we see those two things intersecting is where your SLA penalties fall. When we look at cost and quality, that's where your no trouble found or false alarms or false positive falls in. And at the intersection of time and quality, you've got downtime, mean time to repair, things of that nature. They're all talking about the same thing, downtime or outages. Now, right in the middle is the sweet spot. To balance these three things, you need what we call business service management, or BSM. The art of BSM is to balance the performance implications, the revenue implications, and the reliability implications of every decision you make to maximize your overall business success. The metrics that we typically look at or suggest that people look at are 4. There are plenty of more. Every company may run differently, but we suggest that you look at 4. One is SLA. What kind of penalties are you incurring for lack of delivery against your SLA? The next one is NTF. That stands for no trouble found. How many false positives are you having? How many service tickets are being written that don't actually have a problem that impacts the overall performance? And the third one is MTTR, or mean time to restore. You could think of it as downtime. MTTR is something that virtually any company, any software company certainly, in aftermarket service and support is going to claim to optimize, and we're no different. But what I would say is that maximizing or optimizing MTTR is very difficult because it goes from everything from the actual troubleshooting and fault isolation all the way down to, are the parts available? So supply chain management. It goes down to, do you have personnel available? That's field service management. So all of these different components come into MTTR. So while we will use the MTTR acronym, the piece that we really optimize is the mean time to diagnose, the mean time to actually figure out what's wrong. After that, it's someone else's job to go fix it. All of this builds up to number 4, arguably the most important business metric, which is customer satisfaction. Because if you have high CSAT numbers, you're going to have predictable revenue, day in, day out, year in, year out. But CSAT is a trailing indicator. So that is the result of optimizing SLA, NTF, and MTTR. Now, what's the impact of not getting this right? You've got wasted time, higher costs, and lower quality. So the goal or the purpose of a BSM tool like Centerity is to deliver high performance within the time, cost, and quality goals of your organization. So what are the traditional remedies for addressing this challenge? Well, each of the layers, you see the layers coming up like puzzle pieces on the screen. Each of these layers, as I said before, uses different metrics, and they're not well integrated. So what happens is companies are using the tools that either come with the device or the software that are designed for managing that device or that software application at a very deep level, or they might be purchasing a bespoke or custom-built solution to go in and manage that. So they're using existing tools and they're trying to throw on some add-on modules perhaps to try and glue this puzzle together. Another approach would be custom or internal development by your own R&D organization or by a system integrator to try and glue all this together into one cohesive picture. The result of that might be something like a manager of managers result. But an awful lot of companies we've met actually simply throw up their hands and do nothing, and they live with it. This is a pain that is acute to them, but because they experience it day in and day out, they've actually become numb to that pain, and they now look at it as simply the cost of doing business within their managed service provider environment or within their data center. What they then do is they take each of these pieces and put it onto a single screen. And that feels like you're making progress because you've got all the different layers on one screen. But whenever you have an outage or whenever you have a performance degradation, it still takes a human being to look at all these different pieces and figure out how an alert within the compute layer is affecting an alarm within the storage layer and is reflected as a warning within your cloud environment. How do those pieces correlate? It takes expertise and an awful lot of experience to be able to piece that story together, which makes you have to rely on top-notch sysadmins. All right, you're preventing new sysadmins from being able to understand what's really going on in the system. So monitoring your IT layers really doesn't reveal the business risk or the business impact of decisions that are being made. So if we look at it graphically, within the traditional IT monitoring environment, you're constantly reacting to problems. Every day, alarms are going off, outages or SLAs are being violated, and people are scrambling. So what's happening? You get an alarm, and suddenly you have 4 different searches that are run on each of the different tech layers. Those searches reveal a few KPI results, and then they reveal a lot of KPI results, and then they reveal even more KPI results. So you have multiple tools inspecting thousands of warnings and alerts, all in the effort to try and find one defect. The result of this is false positives, frustration, and finger pointing going on a daily basis. All right, so that's the problem. Is there an alternate solution? We propose as Centerity a single platform that uses consolidated measurements. So we take the same puzzle pieces, the same technology layers, and we evaluate them against time, cost, and quality. And we extract only those metrics and KPIs that are relevant to overall performance. And then we organize them in a way that gives you a single gauge or a single dial that tells you about the health of your environment. So by evaluating metrics for enterprise performance and reliability, you can get a holistic view of what's really going on and what's impacting your business. Let's take a look at how that works. Now, instead of waiting for an alert or an alarm, you have a gauge that tells you that you're right on the edge of green and yellow, okay? Right on the edge of normal operation and warning flags. We happen to be looking at an ERP environment here. Within this model, same tech layers, we now run a single search across all of those technology layers, which reveals a few different KPIs that are relevant. But now they're highly structured and organized in a way that it's very easy to understand and digest. Now we take those alerts, and each of the KPIs gets a weight factor. So how important is this KPI to overall business performance or to the health of the layer? Here you can see an example where we put in some weighting factors. We look at what the KPIs are telling us, and we come up with the fact that the compute layer, or the server layer, is sitting at 67% health. Well, we do that for all of the layers, which get another weighting factor to roll all the way up to your overall health of your ERP business process. And we do the same thing for your CRM, for your supply chain management, or in the case of a managed service provider, instead of these being business processes, these could be individual customers. So you might have customer A, customer B, customer C, instead of having business processes. But either way, you are getting a view of how your customer, whether it's an organization, a business process, or an actual third-party customer, how are they responding, and how is their environment performing for what they're actually paying for and looking for. The result of this now is a single tool that isolates a few defects, and it does that to accelerate your troubleshooting and to help perform preventive service. So what Centerity's approach is all about is recognizing and diagnosing defects before they actually hit your SLA and CSAT numbers. Let's take a different look at how this works. If we just look at an IT or OT, that's operational technology environment, we can sort of map out what I call defect awareness. So at the bottom, you've got the service level. On the left, everything is green, right? That's normal operation. On the right, you've got an outage. Nothing's working. It's all broken down. In between, you've got a phase where you're going through some reduced performance, and then performance gets low enough that it starts kicking off performance alerts. Okay, these are the sort of phases that performance degradation goes through. Now, as you move to the right, your ability to understand exactly what the defect is, to isolate that fault or isolate that defect, is getting more and more accurate until naturally when you get to an outage, you know exactly what broke. So how does Centerity play in this environment? Well, most companies are still doing a big scramble whenever there's an outage or an SLA violation, and people are trying to figure out what's gone wrong. How does Centerity help your outage environment? Well, we see that you're in an outage, and because we're only looking at a few of the performance metrics versus the tens of thousands that may be relevant to a single customer, and when I say few, by the way, I should couch that. That could be hundreds of different metrics, or maybe even thousands, but it's not all of them that are available that your current tools are managing. But the way that we're going about it is we're able to give you very targeted repairs, targeted troubleshooting, because we're going to steer you to the actual KPIs that are affecting business service in the terms of SLA and CSAT. Okay, so once you've got that under control, and now your sysadmins aren't running around like chickens with their heads cut off every time an alarm goes off, you can actually take a breath and think about, how can I make my overall organization work better instead of always in a reactive mode? And now with Centerity's BSM, when you get into the yellow range, you can again use the same exact process using targeted troubleshooting in order to do preventive service. And now you're able to start eliminating some of those outages and improve your CSAT and improve your service levels. Once you've got that under control, you can start to look at trends. All of this is available within Centerity's BSM tool, but you can start to do some trend analysis and understand the correlations between the various alarms and alerts that are coming in, so that you can eliminate more of those false alarms. You can start to tailor some of the thresholds of various alarms so you're not getting as many. But this is a stepwise function. You're starting with an outage and you're working your way back into a more and more productive user environment or data center or MSP. And the final step that we all hear so much about is machine learning. Now, I have quite a bit of experience actually in the machine learning and AI space. And I would tell you that if you are just diving into machine learning without having mastered targeted repairs, preventive service, and trend analysis before you get to machine learning, you won't know whether machine learning is giving you good data or bad, good responses or bad. And so it's critical that your organization go through this stepwise function before they dive into big data and machine learning. Once you've mastered those, then you'll be able to accurately assess how well machine learning is helping you. Because machine learning can give you false correlations as easily as good ones, which then results in lots of wasted money. So that's how BSM actually works in action. So within that, let's step back and look at what Centerity actually covers. We talk about this as true BSM. So first of all, we've got full stack technology analytics across all of the technology layers. I list a bunch here, but I leave a dotted circle because it's whatever else you want to add in that might affect your service levels and CSAT. But what we're doing here is the service level roll-up by business process across all technology layers. It's also true BSM for hybrid environments, whether it be remote sites, cloud, co-location, on-prem, SaaS. It's service level roll-up across all deployment models. But it goes farther than that. You've got true BSM for scalable multi-tenant environments. Regardless of how many customers you have, you can treat each of them as a separate organization, as they are, and monitor them separately based on their unique SLA requirements. So you've got service level roll up across all organizations. The result of all this is a true BSM dashboard where you're viewing the enterprise metrics through the lens of the business implication. So you're going from IT and OT over into business, where now you've got all these dials coming in and each one represents a business service, a business process, or a customer, or an organization. And here I happen to have business processes, so whether it be supply chain management under logistics, or whether it be manufacturing execution systems under production, you have the ability to monitor that and know what the impact is on your business. And we can link all of that into your ticketing tools, your big data tools, your other deeper dive analytics tools. But what we've done here is we've replaced silo monitoring with service level management. So John Speck is going to be going through a demo in a second, but I want to just give you sort of a preview of what you'll see in that so that it's not the first time you've seen it. I want to show you a few of the screens so that this will make more sense. So here we have the ability to do what we call drill down fault isolation into, at this point, the layer or business service. So it gives you visibility into every layer beneath that dial. You can drill down into, within a layer, into the actual metrics or KPIs. In this case, we're showing the Citrix Zen desktop layer. You can drill down into the KPIs for your MySQL database. Any of these dials you can click on and drill into and start to find out what metrics are affecting overall performance. Here we're showing the overall business service events through an events console. Here we're showing advanced visualization tools that allow you to better understand how all the metrics are lining up and what they're related to. A little bit faster navigation in some cases to get to the relevant metric. And we can even go the route of giving you visual guidance as to where you should look on the actual hardware for where the problem is. Here you're seeing our Lenovo, Citrix, and Nutanix integration, where we've got a visual map here where various warnings and alerts are coming up, and they're steering you toward the actual components that need to go be inspected. So in summary, Centerity Business Service Management is all about unified IT and operations performance analytics. It goes across all of your various layers, looking at all of the various metrics and KPIs to roll it up into one BSM dial that gives you real-time SLA views for your business services. It helps you analyze the performance of any IT or OT layer, and it gives you advanced reports for predictive and trend analysis, ultimately which improves your CSAT. And on the left are the various integrations to various levels. So it is a single pane of glass for end-to-end BSM.
And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Michael for the demonstration.
All right, John, thank you for that. All right, so you should be looking at a dashboard. So I guess one of the points to emphasize here is that really the goal is to provide the right visibility into your infrastructure across any role in the organization, any layer of technology, and any environment. The other goal would be it should be simple and easy to use. So if the director of sales can demo the product, pretty good sense that the rest of you out there should be able to do the same. So there's a lot of details here. We'll take you sort of just through some of the highlights and encourage you to engage us further if you want to see more details. But again, out of the box, what you want to be able to see if we're talking about roles, if you're an executive, dials and gauges, things that give you a sense of what's going on with the health of systems being up or down. You can see that in the first couple of blocks. If you're an operations person, perhaps you want to see, the health of systems by type, perhaps application servers versus Citrix servers, which you see down in this corner. Or perhaps you're sitting in the NOC, and the thing that's most important to you are the critical events, the metrics that are actually causing some sort of an action to happen, much the way John talked about outages. Those are the ones we'd like to prevent from happening, but again, when they do, you want to see them. I'm going to give you the other thing we can do on dashboards is they're customizable. So again, not everyone views data the same way. And so we've got a dashboard designer that will allow you, for example, if you can create a map or a picture of something, then we can create live links for it, which you see an example of in this corner here. If you've got folks on the development or engineering side and they want to see kind of how the technology is structured and laid out, well, you can look at it through this kind of a picture. And again, reiterating that whether they're dials or gauges, you have the flexibility to change these dashboards as you need and as are relevant to your organization. Up at the top here, again, because you want to be able to react quickly, the thing that's going to be most important is, are there something critical happening with my business services? So if we click on this icon, the thing that we're going to see immediately is which business services in my organization are experiencing some kind of a critical event, and these two are. If we drive in or drill into it, what we'll see is that this MSP customer D, again, just an example, is made up of a variety of technologies. But very quickly, just by glancing, we can see the problems in the MySQL area. If we drive a little bit deeper into that, what we'll see as we scroll down is there's a problem specifically with MySQL. If we look a little bit more into the metric, we'll gather a lot more details about exactly what this event is. Now, in this use case, what normally would happen is you might want to assign this to an engineer, so you might want to open up a ticket. So we provide the mechanism to open up tickets to any of the ticketing systems you may have in your organization, whether those are ServiceNow, Remedy, or others like that. So returning back, or actually probably a quicker way of navigating there is, let's go take a look at a couple of the services where maybe there isn't a critical event happening, but you want to prevent that. So when things are in the yellow, they're probably trending towards some kind of a performance issue. So let's go drill a little deeper into the HANA on Cisco business service. Again, consistently, you see we're going to outline for you all of the layers of technology addressing the any layers point we made earlier. And so you see those identified here. Again, pretty quickly we see the problems likely in the network, so we can drill down deeper. The other thing you can do is sometimes it's easier to view these things through a different visualization. And so in this example, we have these hypermaps. So quickly we can see, all right, if this is in a state that requires requires to look at it, you can see quickly that the network is having a problem, and from there we can expand it out, and we'll see where the problem is. Again, it's with the HP ProCurve device. So let's jump back out of business services. Again, if I go to the main menu, this is a place where you can see all of your services in one screen, rather than jumping to them based on what's running or what's just in a temporary state. The other way, and again, so what you're looking at here is real-time data. The other way you want to look at data is through reports. So we can send reports to your email, to your text, and again, it's another form of looking at the information. So I wanted to take a look at what our reports on SLAs. We were looking at business services before. So let's stay and be consistent. Let's look at that HANA and UCS, generate a report. We want to see what's been happening over the last 12 hours. And we'll just hit this. Again, the way this report is in the style that's probably more applicable to an executive. It gives them just kind of the high level, how has the system been running? And again, to somebody, they can delve in a little deeper and see by system, how well those things have been running and see it in a report. You can also, let's take a look at a report that might be more applicable to an engineering type. So in this case, maybe what we want to look at is all those different. We want to look at what's going on with my network devices. I think we've got some network devices. Let's take a look at those. And again, you'll see in this case, that there's a lot more data presented, and it's going to be more relevant to somebody who's in an engineering role versus the executive role. So we can report on any of the data that we collect out of the system through this mechanism. We can also visualize the data in different ways. For example, again, oftentimes you'll see a map like this in a network operations center, showing you geographically perhaps where the different remote and data center infrastructure sits. You might look at it from we know we're having a problem with our storage device. And if we want to go direct an engineer to go into the data center, it might be easier for that person to take a look and say, oh, I realize that that's the VNX system sitting in the rack, and if they clicked on it, they would get the exact fault that generated that. So again, kind of mapping the way people need to see the data to the role that they play in the organization. Now you might be wondering, how do you actually build this environment out? Well, we've got discovery, and John talked a little bit about that earlier. So this again, and I'm not going to go through and all the screens to do this, but for all intents and purposes, we have multiple ways to do discovery, and we can do it by just picking subnets on the network, to picking the types of servers, maybe their Windows environments, to SNMP. But we can go out, auto discover all of the elements that sit in your network, and then we can create the CMDB with all of the inventory about hardware, software, and the way the applications are mapped. I showed you a little bit, we talked a little bit about business services, and again, we're not going to go through and create one from scratch here, but just so you get a sense of the way it's done, we've got a mechanism to allow us to change what kind of an impact the layers of technology have on that business service. So you can see here's applications, and currently we've got this weighted at 25%. If we look down at the network, that's weighted at 20. Well, maybe we happen to know that our network's not very reliable, so we might change that to 50 or 60. So you have all of the power to control those thresholds for the way your business services are going to generate the alerts that are important to you. I'm going to go back to jump back out and show you real quickly, in addition to the business service monitoring and the layers of technologies, we can actually delve a little deeper into specifically network traffic. And so this is an additional tool to our offering. And oftentimes, you'll see traffic analyzers in the marketplace allowing you to look at traffic bandwidth and patterns between source and destinations. Net flow and J flow and S flow and all these different network flows. The reason that we are different, again, and we don't sell this product on its own, we sell it in conjunction, because imagine, again, if we got to the point in that layer of network that I showed you previously, we can actually then drive deeper into it and really see exactly what's happening on that network, whether it's what protocols are using up our bandwidth, whether it's which hosts are talking more and creating more network utilization. Again, another tool that we have that allows us to kind of fulfill the objective of business service management, meaning we can delve all the way down into the network up through the applications. So with that, I think we've kind of given you a taste of how the environment works, and hopefully you take from that it's all about visibility and relating it to the right role in the organization, the right layers of technology, and the right kind of environment, whether you're an MSP or a large multinational company with different functional data centers that you want to represent. So I'm gonna stop for a moment and see if there are any questions. We'll just pause. I realize that sometimes you're shy out there. You don't want to type your question, but all right. Okay. Well, I have one here. It's asking the question: do I need to replace all of my existing monitoring tools to take advantage of Centerity's BSM platform? And the answer is no. You don't need to replace all of those. One of the things I think, and John showed you that a little earlier, and hopefully you can see it through the demo. The platform's flexible, and we can take in data from any kind of device. We can also take in data from any kind of monitoring tool. So in order to manage a migration perhaps to maybe just a single tool, we can act as a manager of managers. I think what you'd find though, is that we can take a lot of cost out of having to deploy multiple tools, because even if you own it, you're paying support on it. And so if we can reduce that footprint so that you've got one single pane of glass, one tool, it'll take a lot of cost out of your monitoring budget. Let's see. Here's another question somebody sent. They're saying, well, we have APM. Isn't that just going to be good enough for monitoring and ensuring the health of our applications? And again, this is more of a coexistence strategy, but an understanding that APM does a great job of looking inside of the application and helping you understand the way it performs, particularly for web-facing applications. But what it's not doing is it's not letting you know if your app's being impacted by the technology on which it sits. Remember, there are firewalls, there are load balancers, there's application servers, there's a ton of technology underpinning the app. And APM offerings don't address that level of detail. So frankly, we coexist quite well. We can take in some of the data, factor it into our BSM process, and make for an even more accurate service level agreement. Okay, I've got another question here about the pricing model. And again, I would almost call it a feature of the system, because the pricing model is very flexible, very simple, just like the user interface we demonstrated to you, but it's all based on metrics. All of what we're measuring are, whether you call it a metric or a KPI for a network or for an operating system, or for the amount of memory used in your operating system or storage, any of those metrics to us, a metric's a metric. And all you're really purchasing is a pool of them. And you can flexibly migrate them from one device to another and decommission devices, and still, as long as you stay within your pool of metrics, it's a very, very simple pricing model. And the more metrics that you purchase, the lower the price per metric it is. Let's see. I don't think we have any other questions. I'm going to pause again. All right. Well, with that, we have, I guess, one more order of business. We did say we would do this drawing for the $100 gift card. So if you give me a second, I'm going to ask my assistant here to pick one of these. So here we go. All right. So it looks like Gonzalo Cabrera, if you are on and you've maintained your your stay with us, then you've earned a $100 gift card, and we'll get in touch with you to figure out how to get that to you, to your physical mailing address or whatever is appropriate. All right. Well, on behalf of John Snow and Centerity, we thank you for participating, and we look forward to maybe carrying on these conversations individually with you. Expect a follow-up with the presentation and perhaps a recording of the webinar with a goal of perhaps doing a one-on session and delving into some more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.